Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the podcast today. I'm excited about today's episode as I really talk about the psychology of success, or really the psychology behind why we do or don't do the things that help us be successful. Here's the thing: we all have goals, we all have dreams of things we want to accomplish and places we want to be. There's a gap, right, between where we are and desired future state. And when you think about it, success is just a byproduct of the choices and decisions and the actions that we carry out every day. And if we carry out the right ones, if we're making the right choices, the right decisions, and putting forth the right effort, then success happens. It's an outcome. But the psychology comes behind it because often as humans, we know what we should do. We just don't always do it, right? And I think that fascinates me, that whole concept of the lack of knowledge is not what holds us back in life. It's the fact that we don't always act on it. We all know we should do things that we don't do. We all know things we shouldn't do that we do anyway. I mean, how many times have you heard that you should drink 8 glasses of water every single day and you should exercise at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes? But most of us don't do it, right? We've all heard that, but most of us are not doing that. And I share that from the stage a lot of times when I speak and I talk about that. The lack of knowledge is not what keeps us from being successful in life. Most of the time, it's that we get in our own way, right? The biggest obstacle that we have to climb over to be successful is ourselves. And so I share that a lot of times when I'm speaking and I talk about that. And I always say, how many of you have heard that you should drink 8 glasses of water every day and exercise 3 times a week? And I'm not making this up. Only one time, only one time in all of the years that Mac and I have been speaking and going all over the country and doing that, only one time have I ever had somebody in the audience actually be like, hey, me, I am really dedicated to drinking 8 glasses of water and exercising at least 3 times a week. And let me tell you, this person was probably a fitness, maybe a fitness instructor, or obviously a bodybuilder or something like that. Like, they obviously looked like they were in tip top shape, but it was clear that, yeah, they were dedicated to being their best self physically. So I say all of that to say that's what's fascinating, is because if we can tap into why we do or do not carry out the actions that help us be successful, then it's much easier to become successful. Because once we tap into why we're avoiding something that we know we should do, or why we are doing something that we shouldn't do that's holding us back, then it's much easier to reroute around that obstacle. And I remember reading a few years ago a book called The Four Disciplines of Execution. And it's a fabulous book in terms of organizational strategy and how to execute on organizational goals. But I think many of the principles apply on a personal level as well. And I loved the example in the book of working on lead measures and lag measures. And so, to kind of explain to you what that means, I'll give you the analogy that they gave in the book of, let's just say, for example, that you want to lose 10 pounds. And so you step on the scale and you look down at the number on the scale, and either you've lost some weight and moved closer to your goal, or you haven't. But it's too late to do anything about it in the moment that you step on the scale. The scale is a lag measure. It reflects progress or lack of progress, but it's lagging behind the actions that help you be successful in working towards that goal, right? When you step on the scale, it's too late. It is what it is. You can't affect that number in the moment. I mean, unless you want to, hold your breath really tightly and don't move, and maybe the number will drop half a pound, or maybe you lean against the wall, or maybe you wear different clothes and hoping. Maybe you've ever done that. You go to the doctor and they're going to put you on the scale, and you're like, let me. I don't want to wear the bulky blue jeans and heavy boots. Let me wear something light. And I don't want to see that number on the scale go down. Anyway, it's funny how we are as humans, isn't it? It all comes down to, stepping on that scale is a lag measure. The measure is lagging behind the effort and the actions that help you be successful. It's too late to affect the outcome. It is what it is. Versus a lead measure is something that you're doing before you get on the scale. And it can also affect the outcome, but you're doing it in advance of stepping on the scale. So an example of a lead measure would be, I'm going to have a salad today instead of a cheeseburger, right? That is a lead measure that can help you affect the outcome. When you step on the scale is just a scoreboard. It's just a reflection of the current state, but it's too late to affect change. The lead measure is where you actually are successful in affecting change. And it's just a principle of personal growth and success. If you focus on the right lead measures, to use the term from the book, then you will get to the point of success. But here's the problem. Most of us, there again, we know some of the things, at least some of the things that we could do to be more successful, and whatever it is, however we define success, that's different for all of us. But regardless of what that is or what that looks like for you, most of us know at least some things that we can do to get there. And if you don't know, let me just tell you, you can get on Google and Google it, and you will find some good ideas and suggestions. You might find some bad ideas and suggestions. But if you don't know how to be successful in whatever you're working toward, you can Google it. You can look it up on YouTube. You can read a book by somebody who's done it, right? The information is out there. So the lack of knowledge really is not even an excuse, because these days information is so accessible to all of us. So it's not that we don't know. It's the fact that we don't always carry out those actions. So why? Right? Why? Why are we not willing to sacrifice? Well, number one, sacrificing in the moment, a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain, that's never fun. That's never fun. That's never enjoyable, or it wouldn't be a sacrifice, right? A sacrifice is when we give up something now so that we can reach up towards something in the future. But a lot of times we won't let go of what we're holding on to down here. And so we cannot ever reach forward toward what it is that we really, truly want. We have to be willing to let go of what's holding us back in order to reach a higher and bigger, better goal. So sacrifice is that short-term sacrifice, giving up what we want in the moment and gaining something long-term. Now, that's the thing. Number one, it's not any fun. Nobody ever likes to sacrifice. It's not comfortable. It's uncomfortable, or it's no fun, right? Sometimes it looks like maybe you're going to college, and so sacrificing for you is staying in on Friday night so you can get that paper written or that essay done or study for your math test. It means giving up your social life on Friday night so you can gain a good grade or a college degree in the long term. And that's not any fun, right? It's giving up something, your freedom, your choice in the moment is saying, I'm going to nail down and drill down into what's not any fun, or what's a lot of work, or what I don't really want to do, what I don't feel like doing. And I'm going to focus on this. And I know it will pay off in the long run, but I have to be willing to overcome that first thing, is that sacrifice is not any fun. So that's the first thing. The second thing about sacrifice is we always feel the loss first, right? We always feel the loss from the sacrifice before we get the benefits of what we're working toward. And so it's much, much more difficult because we don't see any benefit immediately. We don't feel any benefit immediately. We feel the loss. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We feel that loss in the moment, and it's a loss. Not only is it not any fun, it's a loss. Like it's a sacrifice of giving up something. And we feel that. And we haven't yet realized any of the benefits for why we're sacrificing to begin with, right? There's a reason the cheeseburger tastes so much better than the salad. But we know when we eat the salad, we can get closer toward that health goal or that weight loss goal. Maybe if you're like me and you're training for a marathon, it's, giving or sacrifice in the moment means some of those training runs and some of those 3 a.m. wake up calls so that I can go train and prepare for that race. I'm sacrificing sleeping in late and laying in bed. Not that I do a whole lot of that, but let me tell you, setting an alarm clock for 3 a.m. is a sacrifice of some of my time in the morning. And yet I haven't gotten the medal that's going to come with the race, or the elation that comes with setting a goal for myself and reaching it. So we feel the loss, right? Number one, there's a sacrifice. It's no fun. Number two, we always feel the loss first. And number three, I think it comes down to it's easier to make our choices and actions and decisions based on external circumstances and information instead of internal information and circumstances. And what I mean by that is, as humans, it is absolutely normal for us to be affected and influenced by our circumstances and our environment. And many, many times our circumstances and our environment they're just not ideal to help us be successful, regardless of whatever it is. Maybe you're trying to start your own business, and so you need to spend your weekends building up your network or reading up on books about what you need to do, or doing some of the things that help make that business grow. But your environment and your circumstances is, hey, it's a beautiful day, let's go spend the day at the park or the lake, right? Your family's like, hey, forget that business thing you're working on, let's go enjoy life in the moment. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but what I'm saying here is that your circumstances or environment does not necessarily always support you in working towards being successful. And that's okay. Again, that's not a negative reflection necessarily on your environment. I just want you to be aware of the fact that as people, it's normal and natural for those external influences to influence us, but they don't determine us, right? You always have the power when you're standing in that moment of decision. I like to call that a decision point, that defining moment where you're like, I can go this way, I can go this way, and this way sounds so much more fun than that way. But that way is going to get me where I want to go in the long term. And it's very easy and natural to want to be influenced by the circumstances, but we don't have to be determined by them. It always comes down to that choice. Now, absolutely, there's no doubt it's much, much easier to make choices when we are influenced in a positive direction instead of a negative direction. There's no doubt that can help us set us up to be more successful in reaching our goals. But regardless of what the circumstances are and the influences are around us, we still have the power of choice, and we have the power to say, this choice made from internal values and circumstances, this is the choice that I'm going to make, rather than the emotion of the moment, or I do this because it's just a habit. We always go to the park on Saturdays. Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's going to help you get to a different place in life. You've heard the cliche, I'm sure, that if you want to do something you've never done, you've got to be prepared to do things you've never done. If you want different results, you've got to start making different decisions. And there again, it's easier when we are supported and uplifted by our environment instead of pulled down. Doesn't mean you can't still do it. It just means when you have something you're working toward, you have to be very intentional and focused on that. I think Mac always does this really, really well. Like, he just tends to be very laser focused on what's in his lane and where he can influence, and where he can, stay in his leadership teaching world, is a better way to say that, maybe. And he's very focused on that, and he's gotten very, very good at saying, nope, that opportunity over there looks nice, it's a great opportunity, but it's not within my lane, within my focus. And he's gotten very good at just saying, nope, not stepping outside of this lane, of this focus. And I think we can all learn from that, because it's the power of focus, regardless of the opportunities that may come your way, that might be nice, that doesn't necessarily mean they are the best thing to move you forward in the direction you want to go. And I think that's where the psychology of success comes into, is that a lot of times as people, we get distracted very, very, very easy. Have you ever noticed how distracting your phone can be, or even your email popping up on your computer? It's like you're working on a project and you're typing out maybe a letter to a client, or working on a chapter on a blog or something like that. And then suddenly that email notification pops up and you got to look at it. And then you're like, oh, let me just click on this. And Then from there, you go to check Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. And then before you notice, you've got like 30 minutes have gone by and you've spent 30 minutes maybe doing some activities, but not necessarily taking action that's going to move you forward. And I think it's important for us to recognize that when we want to leverage our effort and our intention and be successful, the best way to do that is to eliminate those distractions as much as possible. Whatever that looks like, right? What are the things that you can make, the decisions you can make beforehand that can help you be more successful in the moment? And, I talked before about making decisions and choices and creating or making decisions and choices based on your head instead of your habits or your heart, right? Because your heart is where those emotions in the moment are that says, oh, I want to have fun with my friends on Friday night instead of studying, right? That's an emotion of the moment, but it doesn't help you sit down and study for that term paper. Making decisions out of habits. A lot of times we don't recognize our habits can be very powerful. And as long as we're using them in a positive way, a lot of times we just do things and we kind of get into a routine and we don't realize that that's not always the best way to make choices. And so just intentionally looking at why we're making decisions and choices and what's driving them. Because absolutely, it's always easier and more fun to do things based on how you're feeling in the emotion of the moment. But that doesn't help you be more successful. And it's just a negative spiral. For example, if you had just a really tough day at work and you come home and you're tired, it's been a long day and you're super, super hungry and you're like, oh man, I'm just going to order some takeout tonight rather than cook dinner. Well, sure. In your headspace, you know intuitively that whatever it is you cook at home is probably going to be more healthy than what you order from takeout. But your emotion of the moment, your heart or your habit just says, hey, when I've had a tough day at work, I'm just going to order takeout. I remember it used to just be a habit I had that anytime I worked overtime, it was almost like an automatic justification for like a lunch out. Like if I was working an extra couple hours overtime, then that automatically would justify in my head that, oh, well, I'm working overtime, so I deserve to enjoy a treat, right? So you see where I'm going with that. It's easy for us to create habits and make choices based on those habits just because it's worked for us in the past. Or maybe it hasn't worked for us in the past, but we've done it and kind of gotten out of the habit of being intentional. And it all comes back to that foundational principle of being intentional, right? Being intentional with our choices and our time and our actions and saying no to some opportunities or things that we might enjoy doing, and they might be good things, but it's not necessarily the greatest and best use of our time. And that's where the power of being successful comes in, is learning how to leverage that, learning how to overcome those internal objections in ourselves that say, oh, I don't want to sacrifice right now. I don't want to work. That long-term goal that I have is so far away. Is it even going to matter? But all of these small choices compound over time and they do add up. Maybe you can't quantify one decision that doesn't move you in the right direction, but I bet if you put them all together, they would add up to something. And so it's recognizing that and saying, you know what? I need to raise my level of awareness relative to myself and those habits or choices that just don't always serve me. It doesn't mean you still will make the right choice all of the time, right? We're human. We aren't going to make the right choice all of the time, and that's okay. But if we can get the majority of them right, that's where we start to find the power of moving with more intention faster and faster towards our goals, toward that space where we want to be perfectly in alignment with our calling and our purpose and what brings us more joy, and minimize the things that take those options away from us. Until next time.